They called me a madman. And what I predicted came to pass.
To Marco's point, ultimately, everyone who says the Ravens need more receivers was 100% right. I mean, not that.
Let it breathe.
To Marco's point, ultimately, everyone who says the Ravens need more receivers was 100% right. I mean, not that.
Let it breathe. I took a couple days to calm down after my reaction from the Ravens and Bengals Wild Card game. Long story short, I literally had a 42-minute rant that I recorded and I already edited it too. I already had done the edits for it too, and I was gonna upload it, but number one, I was just too busy, but also number two, I was trying to wait a few days to try to calm down. And now it seems like it was a good idea that I decided to do that, because the news obviously broke that Greg Roman is no longer the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. That still doesn't change the issues that I was ranting about in that video, but it's definitely a little more comforting to know that this what seemed to be endless saga of a mediocre offense, it could possibly be over, because it's still yet to be seen what they're going to do from there, obviously. As far as the Ravens-Bengals game, it went better than I expected, because I thought it was about to be a complete blowout. And that's definitely credit to the defense. I know a lot of people are very in the Ravens flock. They, to this day, people just only care about defense. But a bigger issue that I have to keep bringing up, because it shines so bright in that game, was how mediocre this offense is. And that still proves the point I keep making time after time after time. This is not 2000 anymore. You trying to just rely on a powerhouse defense, it's only gonna get you so far. And in the Ravens case, it couldn't get us past the wild card round. Like, think about it like this to really put it perspective why offense matters more than the Ravens front office acts like it does. Despite how the defense did a great job, obviously they did their best to hold the Bengals offense in check. They did a really solid job. They could have done better, obviously, right? Because considering the legacy of the 2000s Ravens that they want to recreate, they should have held them to freaking 3 points or 7 points. But again, in today's NFL, that's unrealistic. So 17 offensive points, that sounds like a winnable game, right? But here's the problem with this offense. Despite this Ravens team holding Joe Burrow and those Bengals to pretty much their worst game of the season, even at their worst, they still were able to match our offensive output. I don't think people understand the magnitude of that. I don't think people understand just how embarrassed they should feel. That this was, like, if I'm not mistaken, this is either the least amount of yards the Bengals had all season or the second least, because I think they had like 230 total yards. Like, Joe Burrow, he threw for like 209, and Joe Mixon and like the other running backs for the Bengals, they really couldn't get it going. They had like 20 or 30 yards. But still, even at their worst, they were able to match our offensive output. And they were able to match us at Tyler Huntley's best. Like, that, this was literally the best game they had all season. Excuse me, this is the best game they've had since Lamar has gone out. Like, even in one of my videos I did like a week or two ago, I said that, forget about 20 points. They're struggling to get to 17 points, and that's a fact. This is the first time in like 6 weeks they've gotten to 17 points. That's embarrassing. You haven't even reached 20 points in almost 2 months. I don't want to go too hard on Tyler Huntley. He did obviously made some key mistakes. One being that interception, which I still don't understand why he tried to force it to Andrews. But again, no matter what, I could understand that. No matter, the coaches are probably telling him to always look for Andrews first, obviously, because he's the closest thing to reliable that you would have to throw to. But even on that play, like a few feet away or a few yards away, Justice Hill, I think he would have had a better chance trying to hit him in stride than going for Andrews right there, because there was like two different Bengals there. I mean, either way, it got picked off. They scored off of that interception. And then obviously the most infamous part of that game, the part that I'm going to make the thumbnail of this video, is that moment where we fumbled at the 2 or 3 yard line, where Tyler Huntley tried to go over the line to try to break the plane. Terrible idea. Not just on Tyler Huntley's behalf, because I don't like the fact personally that John Harbaugh came out and basically low key he threw Tyler under the bus and said, hey, listen, that whole fumble was his fault. I don't really like that, but it is what it is. So that's still a bad decision on Tyler's end, because I don't like it. This sounds crazy, but I don't know how many fans at home understand how big 2 yards is. Like that's literally 6 feet. Like Tyler Huntley's like 5'11", 6 feet, 6'1". Unless he secretly had like a superpower to stretch really far, like Mr. Fantastic, that wasn't gonna work. But more importantly, beyond Tyler Huntley, why on earth was Greg Roman putting Tyler Huntley in that position where he's running a QB sneak from like the 2 or 3 yard line? Again, this is why I'm glad Greg is gone. And this is why part of that 40-minute rant that I was planning on uploading was just going off on Greg Roman, because that's the dumbest shit. It's not funny, but it's like that's the why. Like it's just a head scratcher. Why was Tyler in that position, and why wasn't JK given the ball? The irony that people appoint you the quote unquote running game guru, but yet your starting running back is rightfully complaining about the fact that he's not given opportunities to run. What sense does it make that your running back, but more specifically a running back like JK, who even before he got injured looked like he had a lot of potential? He was averaging 6 yards a carry, and now since he's come back from the injury, he isn't even fully healthy yet, and it's feeling like the second half of the season he's having like that Saquon Barkley type of resurgence where he's just almost playing at another level now. And you're not going to give him the ball. You're not going to let him go in. You're not going to give him a shot to get 2 or 3 yards when they couldn't stop him. But you're running a QB stick. Let it breathe. Greg Roman's gone. God bless. Greg is gone, and I still almost got a headache just now. That is crazy. I don't know how that works, but either way, it was a terrible decision. All of our major flaws on this team, offensively at least, were showcased in that game. But I still want to give people credit, because they tried their hardest. They really, like Tyler, when you watched him, he was playing his heart out, man. He was playing his absolute heart out. Even some of those receivers who I don't like because they're bums, like DeMarcus Robinson, he, if I'm not mistaken, he had a drop early in the game, but then shortly after, he burnt Eli Apple for that like 41-yard touchdown. That was very nice to see. Granted, it's Eli Apple, but still, nonetheless, that's still an impressive thing to do, in a game where it actually matters. But at the same time, why do we still have Pat Ricard out there? Like, Pat Ricard, dog. Every time I see Pat Ricard, I got to take a Tylenol. Every single time. Because we are the only team. We got to be the only team besides the 49ers that care about a fullback at this point in the NFL. And we're definitely the only team that's stupid enough to put a fullback in a position constantly where he's out there running routes like he act as if he's a wide receiver, as if he actually poses a threat to people. And something that somebody else brought up that blew my mind was when they said that Pat Ricard played more snaps than JK. That took me by surprise. It wasn't just JK either. It was several different people. But again, I still think John Harbaugh should go. I'm glad that Greg is going, obviously. But I do not trust John Harbaugh at this point. Because I can't wrap my head around the fact that also real before I finish this video, I gotta call out the way that game ended. That Hail Mary that Tyler threw was actually a pretty solid pass. That was a solid Hail Mary to throw. Obviously, Demarcus Robinson wasn't going to be able to get his hands on it, but of all people, James Prochet had an opportunity to save not only that game, but our season, and also his reputation. And like he always does, he came up short. The fate of our season was in his hand. That one catch, Mr. Strong Hands, he couldn't bring it in. And when you watch the clip, he ain't even really try to bring it in. Like he's over here barely got his arm stretched out. He barely even dived for it. And this is an issue that's always been the case with the receivers on the Ravens in recent years, where when you watch them, they don't want to make adjustments. They don't put 100% effort in at times. And then also they're not reliable to make clutch catches. Like for most players, I would cut them slack on a situation like that because it was a Hail Mary. But for someone like Prochet, who a lot of people hyped up to be like an elite guy who's going to do this and that, I got to hold him to a higher standard. Because someone like DeAndre Hopkins, he could come down with that catch. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins catch a Hail Mary. We all know that catch I'm talking about, where there was 3 Bills defenders around him and he ripped it out of all 3 of their hands and pulled it in. In that situation, even though it was a tough angle for Prochet, he was open technically. There was like the Bengals receivers, they were all trying to get in the way of Demarcus Robinson. They weren't next to him. It was just him, the ball, and the ground. There was nothing stopping him, but he couldn't do it. Which goes back to the point I've been making. We need receivers. And real quick, I'm going to play a clip from 410 Sports Talk, where even a few weeks ago, even they admitted that people like us were right when we said that we need better receivers.
To Marco's point, ultimately, everyone who says the Ravens need more receivers was 100% right. I mean, not that.
Let it breathe.
To Marco's point, ultimately, everyone who says the Ravens need more receivers was 100% right. I mean, not that.
Let it breathe. And I had to bring that clip up. I don't have anything against 410 Sports Talk. 410 Sports Talk. I don't have anything against really anybody in the Ravens flock, whether we agree or disagree. I don't have a problem with anybody really. It's just a game. It's just sports. But at the same time, moments like that, of course I'm gonna bring that up, and I'm gonna feel vindicated, because once upon a time, people like 410 Sports Talk and a lot of their subscribers were some of the main ones saying we don't need to worry about receivers, we're good, blah 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 blah. And here we are now, a couple years later, and now the problem that always existed of us not having good receivers and us not having a good offensive coordinator, instead of them fixing it, instead of them nipping it in the bud while it was still early, they let that problem linger. And now look, our offense is a laughing stock of the NFL. Like, our passing attack is the laughing stock of the NFL. I put out a video a few weeks ago, or like a month or two ago, where I literally, without even trying, I named like 50 receivers who are clearly better than anybody on the Ravens. And I should not be able to so easily do that. But at the same time, these guys just aren't good enough, and they chose to neglect, not fully neglect, but for the most part neglect this whole issue for years. And some people may say that And some people may say that, oh, well, it's not their fault because, you know, they picked a lot of receivers in recent drafts. If you notice that you keep striking out in the draft at receiver, your next common step, your next common sense step needs to be to go out and go get one either via trade or free agency. Like what you see with the Bills when they went and traded for Stephon Diggs. Like when you see when the Dolphins went and traded and signed Tyreek Hill. Like these moves matter. These moves absolutely matter, especially if you're not going to try to trade up in the draft to get the guy who is clearly the best or what seems to be the best option in that class. Because even this year, right? So far, it's looking like the best receiver from that class is probably going to be Quentin Johnston. Again, that's projection. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But so far, it looked like Quentin Johnston may be that best guy, right? Are the Ravens going to trade up for him? No. We're probably going to stick with that pick around 22. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But it just depends on what else they do at receiver this offseason. Like if they pick someone like Jordan Addison, I think is his name, or Jalen Hyatt, who I prefer Jalen Hyatt. I prefer Jalen Hyatt. If they pick someone like that at 22, hey, I think that's a great move. But you can't stop there either, because and this is the problem with operating the way they operate and neglecting what is so important in today's NFL when it comes to skill position on offense. This is the consequence. Now you have to play a major game of catch up. You can't just say, oh yeah, we'll drive Jalen Hyatt to see what happens. No, because there's a bunch of holes, there's a bunch of gaps that need to be filled. All of these receivers on the Ravens need to go. All of them. The only guys you should keep is Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay. And even Devin Duvernay, you need to consider packaging him up with some other guys and some picks possibly and trading him if that means you could somehow go get somebody better. You know, I like Devin Duvernay. I think he could be very useful in the passing attack still, because with his opportunity this season, he did actually, you know, do a decent amount to make you want him to stay, right? But at the same time, he's not a number one, obviously. He's not a number two. He's not a number three. Prochet, if you make him like the fifth option in your passing attack, that's where he could be the most dangerous. Because he's not going to carry your offense or your receiving group, but he can be like a nice cherry on top. He could be a guy who every now and then he just makes a big play. So, yeah. What are they going to do this offseason? I don't know. What do I think about this season as a whole? I would grade this season a C. Like, as a whole, what this team did, I would grade it a C. I'm not impressed with how this season panned out. As far as like how would I grade the defense, despite me wishing they would stop investing so much in it, you know, like they still made solid moves on the defensive end. I would still give that like a B+. Offensively, that's a F. You traded away Hollywood, you didn't replace Hollywood, and these receivers didn't step up when they had opportunity to step up. And Rashad Bateman, you know, he had flashes of greatness, but then he also, you know, he's having some growing pains, so he's dropping a lot of passes, more passes than Hollywood dropped. And then he got injured and missed the rest of the season. The offense is an F. As far as coaching, F. Get rid of all these people. Get rid of all